It turns out that backing out of a residential purchase agreement or getting cold feet as a buyer isn't rare. In fact, about 15% of home buyers, based on a survey done by the National Association of Realtors done in 2025, get cold feet at some point in the escrow or purchase process and may try and may successfully cancel escrow. But here's the kicker. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't like to lose money. I hate losing money, in fact. So today we are going to do a deep dive into, is it possible to cancel a residential purchase agreement as a buyer? And if so, how can I protect my deposit to ensure that I will be getting my deposit back if I cancel escrow? So can you cancel escrow prior to the close of escrow? And how can we protect our deposit? I'm Shamika Fox, your Santa Cruz real estate expert. If you are looking to buy or sell in the Santa Cruz area, please text me. My phone number is pinned to the top of the comments. If you are looking to buy or sell outside of the Santa Cruz area, fill out the form below and I will connect you with a wonderful realtor in your area that will be able to take exceptional care of you. So here's the deal. As many of us, I have had some hard lessons in life. One lesson that to this day haunts me and I do not forget. In fact, we joked when I was pregnant that our baby's first words would be, "Don't co-sign." When I was fresh out of my parents' house, at the ripe old age of 19 years old, the world was my oyster and I thought I knew everything. I was a freshman at college and I made a new friend and we decided to go to Circuit City because she needed a new computer. Yep, that's right. When we were at Circuit City, she apparently, and this was not explained to me, didn't have the credit needed in order to buy herself a new computer. Red flag number one. So the sales agent asked me if I would be willing to authorize the account, was the verbiage that was given to me. Being 19 and not knowing much about anything in the real world, I said, sure, what's that mean? They said, sign here and she gets the computer. And I said, okay, great. So I authorized the account, though little did I know I was actually co-signing on her account, which made me liable for her debt. You know where I'm going with this, I hope. She did not pay off that computer and she was billed and billed and billed. In fact, by the time the bill made it to my parents' house, after several years of them trying to get in touch with me, the computer cost more than $3,500. So as I said, I do not like losing money. I don't like losing my money and I don't like losing my clients' money. So if you are a buyer considering purchasing a home, make sure you read the purchase agreement and that you understand it completely, and make sure you understand how, if you get cold feet or need to or want to cancel for any other reason, you understand how you can get out of the purchase agreement prior to the close of escrow and keep your deposit. Real estate purchase agreements are serious business. They are a legally binding contract that, once signed and ratified by both a buyer party and a seller party, mean that the parties involved must adhere to the contract terms. If you don't adhere to the contract terms, you can either become legally or financially liable for loss and or damages. So as a buyer, actually our California residential purchase agreements are buyer-centric, meaning they actually have more protective clauses for buyers in the contract than they do for sellers. If you are a seller and you want to know how to cancel without ending up in court a purchase agreement, watch the video I produced last week where I talk about how a seller can cancel a purchase agreement and not get sued. I will link it at the end of the video and in the notes below. But once a buyer signs a residential purchase agreement and that contract is accepted by a seller, a buyer actually has legal obligations to comply with the purchase agreement. Luckily, though, as I mentioned before, a residential purchase agreement in California is a bit more buyer-centric than seller-centric, meaning there's more protective clauses for a buyer than there is for a seller. So if you are getting cold feet or if you want to cancel the contract prior to the close of escrow, it is really crucial that you have contingencies in place. The most common contingencies are inspection contingencies, insurance contingencies, appraisal contingencies, and loan contingencies. So as a buyer, if you're going through the escrow process to complete the purchase of your home, make sure that if you are unsure, you have contingencies in place that protect you. You might not have super great job security, and if your loan doesn't get approved, you would be able to cancel the contract and get your deposit back. If the appraisal doesn't come in at value and you have an appraisal contingency, a buyer would be able to either renegotiate the appraised value or cancel the contract and get their deposit back. If you get inspections done and you decide for whatever reason based on the condition of the property that it does not meet your satisfaction, your expectations, you have two options. You can either try to renegotiate with the seller or you can cancel the contract and get your money back. I've had two instances in my real estate career over the past 20 years where my buyers have wanted to cancel the contract. In one instance, we had all of our contingencies. We had a loan contingency, we had an appraisal contingency, and we had inspection contingencies. The home inspector went under the house, inspected the foundation, found that the foundation was not up to par, and in addition, the insulation under the house was completely destroyed, and my buyer decided that she didn't want to deal with it and she wanted to cancel the contract and get her deposit back. This actually took the seller months to sign the cancellation agreement. Now, there is a clause in the residential purchase agreement that actually will find fault and charge a fee of up to $1,000 if either party does not sign the cancellation agreement, because they really don't want to hold up escrows. If a property is not going to sell, then everybody should just sign the cancellation and move on. But for some reason, this seller was adamant she would not sign the cancellation agreement, even though my buyer had contingencies in place and we were ready to move on. So finally, we were able to negotiate with the seller and get her to sign the cancellation instructions and release the funds, but it did take a little bit of power struggling, including the threat of hiring an attorney. That said, I had another instance where my buyer decided to cancel escrow. We did not have any contingencies in place. It was an all-cash offer. She waived her loan and appraisal contingency. Also, they had inspections up front, but what they did not disclose to us was that there was leased solar on the property, and so we received new, pertinent, relevant information, and my buyer decided that she simply did not want to buy the property with the lease. If the seller was willing to buy the lease out, then she would have proceeded, but the seller was not willing to buy the lease out, so we tried to cancel escrow and the seller refused to sign. They were going to retain the deposit. My buyer said absolutely not. This is new information, new disclosed information. You do have a 3-day right of rescission. So she was exercising her 3-day right of rescission. This again, we had to negotiate for months, and it wasn't until my buyer hired an attorney to submit a letter to the sellers that we finally got the sellers to sign the release of the entire deposit back to the buyer. So before you sign any non-contingent contracts, make sure you are 100% certain that you want to buy that home and that you will be able to buy that home if you don't want to lose your deposit. Otherwise, make sure that you have your contingencies in place so that if you get cold feet or you decide for any reason that you do not want to continue with the purchase of that property, that will in fact return your deposit to you. The one thing that is not refundable is any money that you spend as a buyer for inspections, appraisals, vendors to visit the property, etc. Those are non-refundable costs that will be at the buyer's expense. Okay, so I think we've covered it. As a buyer, if you want to legally cancel your purchase agreement and receive your deposit returned to you, there are a few ways to do it. Just to recap, 1, you can have contingencies in place. The most common are loan, appraisal, insurance, inspections, but also if you have the sale of your property contingency, that's another contingency that would allow you to cancel escrow and receive your deposit back. If you have in fact removed all of your contingencies as a buyer and you receive new material facts or information as a disclosure from a seller, once your contingencies are removed and prior to closing escrow, that would give you what's called a 3-day right of rescission rescission, and during those 3 days, you would have the ability to either renegotiate based on the information that was given, or if the information that was provided is so absolutely unacceptable, you would have the ability to cancel escrow and get your deposit back. That's it. I hope this video saves you and your deposit. As I said in the beginning, I don't like losing money of my own, and I definitely don't like losing money for my client. So make sure before you sign that residential purchase agreement, you have complete understanding about the timeframes of when your contingencies are due to be removed and when your deposit will actually be liable. If you want to go over the specifics of a purchase agreement, please feel free to hit me up, call me with any questions. My phone number will be pinned at the top of the comments. Thanks so much for tuning in, and until next time, I'm Shamika Fox, your Santa Cruz real estate expert.